Hey Zoe, thanks so much for coming on the show today. It's great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Georgia.
Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and who's in your family?
So I am mum of two little boys. I have got Tommy, who has just turned one recently, and Leo, who is now three, and my husband, Michael. And then I also have two stepchildren as well. So a bit of a blended family going on. It's quite chaotic when we've got all four children.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot at once, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So we're going to try and get to both birth stories today, but do you want to start off by telling me about your conception journey for your eldest? Did you mean to conceive him when you did?
I was really lucky with my first, and I know that I'm in a fortunate position, and I'm always grateful for that because I know a lot of other people struggle. But we pretty much got pregnant first time, and I'm not really sure if we were even trying. We had basically just got married, and I said that I was going to come off contraception after the wedding, and then I wasn't really sure because I was like, there's pros and cons. There'd be more time for us to spend as a couple together if we don't have a baby, but if we do, amazing as well. So we're open minded. We'll be off contraception and we'll just see what happens. And if it happens, it's obviously meant to be. And literally, first time, one time it happened. So it was obviously meant to be.
So overwhelming feeling was happy, glad.
Yeah, definitely quite shocked because I was really trying to be level headed and just think, Zoe, this can take up to a year. Don't get carried away. Don't get disheartened. I was really trying to be in that positive space and just be realistic. So it was definitely quite a surprise that it happened so quickly. But yeah, a really happy surprise, really positive emotions, and just, yeah, overall, really excited.
And how was your pregnancy journey with him? Were you tracking okay? Were there any kind of things that were worrying, or were you feeling quite good the whole time?
Yeah, again, I was really lucky with my pregnancy as well throughout. I'm quite a chilled out person, and I'm not saying I don't think I do. I think mindset plays some influence. Of course, I think a lot of people have complications that they can't help. But for me personally, I think I've got a really positive mindset. I was just quite laid back and easy going to what was going to come. But I also was really fortunate in that I didn't really have any sort of symptoms. I didn't struggle with morning sickness or anything like that. I think the main symptoms came towards the end, and it was that sort of pressure of literally having a bowling ball in your vagina. That's how I described it, and just getting a bit of backache and stuff. But I was just so accepting of that and just grateful knowing that other people can actually have it a lot worse. So I knew that I had quite a lucky ride with it.
Yeah, so lucky. And it's helpful when you don't know how good you've got it until you've had a bad pregnancy. Did
Yeah.
you feel, because you've got two boys, did you feel the same in both your pregnancies, or that they differ?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the second differed a little bit in the sense that I don't know what the word is. It's like when you get sort of spasm pain down your bum and in your leg.
Sciatic.
It wasn't sciatica, but it was quite common. And especially they say in your second pregnancy, I think because things have already stretched and moved beforehand. And then also I was having a child on my hip the whole time I was pregnant, like carrying my first one on my hip, on my left hip. So I think I just pulled a bit of muscles there. But I went to so I felt fully disabled for a few weeks, but I went to physio and they were able to fix it. So yeah, slightly different journeys, but overall I didn't have any worries. I was just classed as a safe pregnancy the whole way through, like no complications.
Right.
Yeah, and I know that's quite rare from what the midwives say. So I was really appreciative of the fact that I didn't have any concerns throughout and stuff.
And your journey through the NHS, did you have the same midwife each time? Did you have continuity of care, or did you feel like it was a bit chop and changey?
Oh, very chop and changey. I think I was a bit disappointed with that at first because I thought like, build a bit of a bond with your midwife, almost just naively expecting that's going to be your midwife that's going to be there in labour. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed by that. But actually, all of the midwife care that I received was actually really amazing. So although it did change quite a few times, I really did feel welcome and supported. I think the only downside with the NHS is the midwives give you your number if you've got any questions or concerns, but you literally I don't know why, because I couldn't get through to them, couldn't get hold of them, never responded to text. And really, there wasn't many concerns that I had, just a few questions. One of the ones was I was meant to be at a certain hospital. I was based on my postcode, I was meant to be in Pinderfields Hospital in Wakefield. But just due to some feedback from friends and other things, I wanted to give birth at Leeds Hospital. And just trying to ask those questions and work out how to do that. Do I just turn up at the hospital? That was quite difficult. So I'd actually say the admin side of things was a bit heavy, but the sort of other side was okay.
Yeah, it's tricky. I've had it both ways. I've had continuity care and then not had continuity care, and you don't realize how important it is until you've had it.
Yeah, the continuity of care. Yeah.
Yeah, feeling like you've had that same midwife. And it is tricky. I think it's a tough time in the NHS at the moment. And I know they're doing everything they can, but unfortunately, it just feels like it's not enough for us right now.
Yeah. I can completely relate to that. I really felt like that a little bit post birth, but I'm sure we'll come to that later on.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to mention about that birth with your eldest? Sorry, about your pregnancy before we jump to your signs of labor?
No, I think I was really lucky with the pregnancy. It was just very smooth, very easy going. The only one thing that I think I will mention, because I think a lot of people relate to that, is around one of my fears. I think a lot of people have fears about like, the actual labour itself and maybe pregnancy pains. But my fears were a bit more emotional. So they were more based on like, things about like, what happens if I don't connect with the baby? What happens if this baby doesn't love me? Which I know is just crazy, but I was just like, just what happens if somehow in my nature I'm not actually supposed to be a mum? And that's felt, which is in hindsight, now that I've got my two boys, it's so silly, but it was a real fear at the time. And I actually think a lot of people that have gone through some sort of childhood trauma, which I have, probably have that same fear as well. So that was one of the more difficult parts that, yeah, I just wanted to speak about because I think other people might feel that way as well.
So we were chatting ahead of this call about a podcast you've done before, and it was relating to what you've just spoken about dealing with trauma. Do you mind telling us a bit more about that and how that affected you? And because I think there might be some mums listening who could really benefit from your insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a podcast called Unburdened, and I just get other women on that speak about their experiences with sort of difficult childhoods and how they overcome it. But for me personally, I always grew up with quite a difficult relationship with my mum. I never got to have that mother-daughter relationship, so I really craved it my whole life. I've always really looked forward to being a mother because I've desperately wanted to almost heal the relationship that I didn't have. It felt like having children for me was an opportunity to create what I missed out on, just like with the roles reverse kind of thing. So I think that's partly where the anxiety of will I be a good mum came into it because it was really important to me. This was a real intentional decision to have children. I knew that I wanted to be a mum. It wasn't maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's something that I've dreamt of my whole life. And so there was a lot of fears of will I meet the expectations that I've set for myself, which were quite high. And then also I think when you don't have that positive role model, not only do you not have that sort of support from the family side, but you also don't have that positive role model in how to be a mother as well. And I've always seen that as a positive in some ways, in that sometimes actually having a bad example can make you even better because if someone else has made all the mistakes, you know that you're not going to repeat those. But then equally, I was a bit worried that there was going to be factors that were outside of my control, like how you feel emotionally, that I wasn't going to be able to fix, and that would ultimately end up in me not being able to love this baby that I knew deserved unconditional love.
Do you think as well it was that relationship with your mum? That's why the emotional side, that's why the physical, you were like, whatever will be. But it was the emotional stuff that was really what was triggering that anxiety in you. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was very accepting of look, the healthcare professionals know way more than me. As much as I can do research, they've studied this for years. I am just going to put my trust and faith into the NHS, which I know I probably could have done more research and I might have felt differently, but that was just my sort of gut instinct. But yeah, emotionally, I think because I didn't have that support growing up. And I think that's the kind of thing that although people can offer you advice on, they can't really control it. Do you know what I mean? I just felt like that was completely out of my hands and out of my control. And actually, the first night I had him was really difficult. But again, we'll go on to the labour and I'll come back to that afterwards.
Speaking of birth prep, did you do anything in particular? Did you do hypnobirthing courses, NCT, anything like that?
So I did NCT. For me, particularly, I didn't find that very helpful. I thought NCT was going to be a bit more like post care, like how do you actually look after a baby? I have no idea. I actually have no idea how to even put a nappy on. It sounds so silly. And I thought NCT was going to be a lot more focused on that. But I just felt like it was a lot more focused on labour. And for me, I wasn't that bothered. I just thought labour's going to happen whether I like it or not. Like, there's not much I need to prepare for. I did do things like some of the massage, what's it called? Yeah, that's it. The massages, which is, yeah, not the most light. Yeah, exactly. And I was doing some of the exercises, like the pelvic exercises and like bouncing on the ball and just trying to get my daily steps in and stuff. I was really interested in hypnobirthing because I've always had that mentality of mindset over everything. And I'm a big fan of an author called Louise Hay, who really advocates for how powerful the mind is, like when it comes to healing and things. So I really thought that was a route that I was absolutely going to go down. But I also have a very low pain threshold, and I know that I have a very low pain threshold. And I think I was almost subconsciously putting pressure on myself because I think there is a lot of social media posts that say women have done this for years, you can do it, you don't need pain medication, go natural. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I am 100% going down that route. I can do it. But there was probably quite a lot of fears behind that, but almost like a desire to prove myself and also prove my beliefs about like how powerful the mindset is. And then I actually remember speaking to a midwife, and this is actually the best advice that I received. And she was pregnant at the time as well, and she was going for an epidural. And I was like, oh, if you don't mind, can I ask why you're not going for a water birth or natural? Because I just assumed as a midwife, like, especially because that message was being forced on me. At NCT, it was really forceful of like, do hypnobirthing, do it natural. It's, your body's supposed to do this. So I just assumed the midwife was definitely going to do that route. And she was like, oh, no, she's like, I'm definitely having an epidural. And I was like, oh, can I ask why? She went, so at the end of the day, you don't get a certificate for how you have the baby. She was like, the outcome is the same. You have a happy, healthy baby. You've not got anything to prove to anyone. The medicine is there for a reason. And I think I just needed to hear that. And I needed permission. That was okay. And as soon as she said that, that was it. I was set on an epidural.
I think that's it. I have a friend who's a midwife. She's a really close family friend, and she said the exact same thing to me. And I am like you. I have the world's worst pain threshold. Out of anyone I know, I suffer worse than most people. I was like famously the boy who cried wolf as a little kid who like
Yeah.
but yeah, I think and there's so much out there right now with if you don't have that physiological birth, you haven't experienced birth. And it's like, if a baby has come out of you in whichever which way you've birthed.
Yeah, like surely that's the most positive outcome. And someone also said to me, they were like, if you couldn't tell anyone in the world, if you weren't allowed to speak about your birth story to anyone, would you still be opting for hypnobirthing? And that actually made me realize as well. I was like, there's absolutely no judgment, shame, or no to do because I think each journey is your own. But I knew I had low pain threshold, and I was like, who am I actually trying to prove a point to here? Am I trying to prove it to myself? Am I trying to prove it to someone outside? Am I trying to tell people online that I did it pain free? I was like, actually, I don't really care for that. But it did make me realize when I thought about it, if I couldn't tell anyone, would you just take the pain medication? I was like, yeah, I actually would. So why am I thinking about declining it? I was still open-minded to like a water birth, but I just was very accepting of the fact that I would very likely opt in for an epidural, and let's just see how we go. Let's see how it feels and how far we get.
Okay, so I guess let's hear your first signs of labor. How far along were you, and what were those first signs?
So I was a week early. 39 weeks is when I gave birth, which I was really happy about because I think towards the end, you have literally just lost all patience and dignity. At first signs of labour with Leo, I think I woke up in the night. Yeah, I woke up. I didn't have any Braxton Hicks or anything like that. So again, I was quite fortunate, but I didn't have any really obvious signs in the sense of losing the mucus plug or waters breaking, which I think is quite rare anyway. The first signs were contractions, and I woke up at 1 a.m. But I was really chilled. So my husband woke up at 5 because he'd fallen asleep on the sofa downstairs. And he woke up at 5 and saw me. And I'd been like just on the ball for like 4 hours, just like chilling. And he was like in an absolute panic. Oh my God, you're in labour. Why haven't you woken me? And I was like, no, it's fine. Because it's at the start, it is just like period pains, isn't it? And you think, oh, this is so easy. I've got this completely. And then I think it was quite a slow labour. By 11 o'clock, they had intensified and they were starting to get a bit more painful. And about 60 seconds or a few, whatever. It was quite hard to judge actually because I say 60 seconds, but it kept changing. It was like 60 seconds, 5-10 minutes, and then it was like a 5 or 10 minute gap. And you're not really taught that, I don't think. You're taught like, oh, your contractions will be this, and then when they get to this, you come in. But you don't really get taught that they fluctuate. So you're like, oh, do I go in? Do I not go in? Do I go in? I don't want to be a hypochondriac, but what am I doing?
And also that some contractions, like I had some that went like over a minute. I was like, they're like, this is a really long contraction. I was like, why am I still contracting?
Yeah, I was advised that I was going to get a break every 60 seconds. Like, why is this going on?
Everyone goes, you can do anything for a minute. What if it's over a minute?
Because I absolutely can't. Yeah, so we went in at 11 and I was so glad that they saw me. And she was like, I said, can't remember if she said it was 1 or 3 centimeters. I'm not sure which child that was. But I was just so grateful that I was actually in labour and that I wasn't making out because I thought, oh my God, if I get sent home here, and it's already, because it was starting to get a lot more intense, like the pain was a lot more intense. And I was thinking, oh God, if I get sent home this and I'm meant to handle this and it's only getting worse and I'm at home, I am not going to survive. So I'm so glad that she just admitted me and said that I could wait in a room. And then literally from 11 till 12, it just absolutely escalated. and they kept offering me paracetamol. I was like, paracetamol is not going to cut it. This is not like, it's just no, absolutely not. And then so she checked again. I was literally, my poor husband, I just kept saying, I was like, go and check again. And he was obviously checking, and the nurse was like, oh no, we'll be there in a minute. I was like, go again, go back again, because I was in so much pain. But when I say so much pain, not like, it's not scary, it's manageable. It's just not comfortable at all. If I could have something to alleviate those symptoms at the time, I would have. And then literally she checked me and I'd gone from 1 to 5 in the space of an hour. So they admitted me into the delivery room. And at that point, she was like, do you want me to go through the medication in order of intensity? And I was like, no, I just want the epidural. I think at that point, I just decided I absolutely wasn't, I just knew it was only going to get worse. And I think I was struggling that much at 5 centimeters. I didn't need to find out what it was going to be like at 10 centimeters. No thanks.
Yeah, I've only made it to 5 centimeters. Not only made it, but like with my birth with Kit, I got to 5 centimeters, and that was when I had my epidural. So God knows what's on the other side of that 5.
I've got no desire to find out. I honestly find it insane, like how amazing women's pain threshold must be when they're like, oh yeah, I got to 10 without pain medication. I think you are an absolute queen, because I couldn't. I couldn't handle it at all. But I think at the time, so the dreaded news when they tell you that they can't get the anaesthetist. Is it anaesthetist? I can't even pronounce that word.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Anaesthetist. Yeah.
It's a hard word to say. But when they say, oh yeah, he's got 3 other people in front of you. And I was like, oh my God. So she was like, we can give you morphine.
Are you on gas and
I wasn't on gas and air at that point. I think that it was all happening. They just wheeled me and they were in the delivery suite. She told me that I could have an epidural, and then she told me it's going to have to wait an hour. I don't think I'd even set up the gas and air. That was all happening at the same time. And that probably would have helped, to be fair. But I said yes to the morphine, which with my second, I didn't, because I took the morphine. And at the time, it was absolutely amazing. Instant bang, like all pain gone, lovely. But I was absolutely out of my head, completely loopy, gone.
You mean pethidine?
Maybe. I thought she said morphine, but maybe. It was the injection. It's an injection in the leg.
Yeah, I would. Maybe it has morphine in it. The common thing that I've heard, I'm not a medical professional, that women have said is that they were offered pethidine, which effectively is an opiate. And anyone I know who's taken it has said what you're saying. They just felt like they were completely high.
Yeah, it must have been that then. From then on, from 1 o'clock, I did get the epidural. Don't really recall getting the epidural. From 1 o'clock until 9 o'clock, I was just high as a kite. Happy, chilled. I was really happy. I was absolutely fine. I thought, this is easy. I'm so relaxed. But obviously, I think when you take the injections, I think that's one of the downsides of an epidural is I think it can slow down your labour. So where I'd gone from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, I'd gone from 1 centimetre to 5. I had the injections and then the epidural, and from 12 o'clock I didn't give birth until 9 o'clock because it slowed down that much. But it was fine. I was having a great time. I was just chilled, watching Modern Family on the TV. My husband went to get lunch and stuff. It was very relaxed, so I am grateful for that.
And presumably baby was okay and they were happy for you to just slowly get to 10 centimeters?
Yeah, so baby was okay. I think after they can't medically intervene for 4 hours, if I'm not mistaken. I imagine it probably changes amongst different trusts, actually. But where I was, they can't intervene for 4 hours. So I can't quite remember the time zones here. But after baby was absolutely fine, but it just wasn't really progressing once I'd had the epidural. So then they broke my waters for me. And then after they broke my waters, I think that's when things started to progress a lot more, the contractions. Yeah, first time round, they broke the waters. Still took another 4 hours before baby arrived, but the contractions were getting a lot more intense then, which I find actually crazy because I had to take gas and air with the contractions. And I just find that mental. You're told an epidural just numbs everything, but actually you still need the gas and air. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. My experience of an epidural was that, like you, I could actually only work down half of my body, which was annoying. So I could still feel a lot. But other women I've spoken to were completely numb from like here down.
Yeah, and you know what I find quite weird? I listened to randomly Molly May's pregnancy story on YouTube. And what I found quite interesting was I know that she went private, and a few people that I know that have gone private as well say they felt absolutely nothing. And I was like, I wonder if that's an NHS difference where I don't know if you've gone privately. I don't know. Like, it just felt like all my friends that went private were like completely numb, didn't even feel the pushing at all. Whereas I was like, no, you need to top up my epidural. I can feel this.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, it's topped up. And I was like, no, it's not. You need to top it up more. And I was like, I don't know if the NHS maybe have limits on how much they can numb it. I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to anyone who's gone privately yet. I've only ever spoken to women birthing through the NHS, and definitely some women have had full no feeling whatsoever. So I think it must depend on the trust. If your hospital, for example, only does the kind of movement epidural, I could lift my legs.
Yeah, I couldn't lift my legs. I was like legs for jelly, but I could also definitely feel that the contractions and the pressure when it came to pushing was like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
The way that I explain it to people, it's like if you have a tooth pulled or if you've ever had dental work, and it's similar to a C-section, but like the feeling of an epidural and pushing and stuff is like stuff is happening down there.
Yeah. It doesn't take away like I suppose it does lots of pain, absolutely, but it definitely doesn't take away the sensations, which is weird. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
That like, people confuse with maybe pain because that kind of feeling of pressure and force and stuff is unsettling as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, like when I look back in hindsight, I was like, I don't even know why I was making such a big deal about it. But like when I was pushing, like I remember thinking, oh my God, this is awful. It needs to be over. But I don't actually know if like when I look back, I don't think I was actually in pain. I think it was like my perception of how painful it should be was almost making me feel pain more. Like how you said, it's almost like I was sending signals to my brain to say, wow, this pressure is really intense. This should really hurt. So then in my head, it was hurting. But it's a bit, I was as high as a kite at the same time. So I can't actually give an accurate recollection from it. But I can just, with my second birth, I didn't have a morphine and it was a lot more calm and controlled, like with the thinking and pushing and stuff.
I think the other thing as well, maybe because in your head you'd expected no pain with an epidural, and the fact that you were then feeling just anything, your
Yeah, I
brain
was
saying,
panicking.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was panicking because I was like, I don't want to feel this. This is the worst part. I really don't want to feel this. But yeah, I think so. At NCT, they told us that you could be pushing for 2 hours. So when I started pushing, I was like, I can't do 2 hours of this. I was like, oh my God, I simply cannot do 2 hours of this. And I was actually only pushing for like 10 minutes. So obviously I had all the medications, drugs, but you started to feel the contractions getting more intense. And then somehow I just knew that I needed to push because I could feel the intense pressure. Midwife said, yes, it's okay to push. I was like, great. But I was panicking. I was like, oh my God, is this going to take 2 hours? Because no, absolutely not. And the midwife kept saying, no, he's nearly here. He's nearly here. And I was like, you're lying to me. You're lying. There's no way it's going to be this quick because I've been told 2 hours. And she was like, no, he's nearly here. And actually, in total, it just took 10 minutes pushing. And yeah, he was here. So again, really relieved about that.
That pushing experience, can you talk us through that? Because for women listening who haven't had a epidural whilst pushing, what was that like? Did they coach you? Did you know what to do?
It is quite weird because I know you were told to listen to the midwife, but I really do feel like instinctively your body actually does just take over. The pressure just felt so immense. Like there was just no way that you couldn't push because it just felt like something was going to burst. It really does feel like you've got a watermelon down there. It feels so much bigger than my baby's head, but obviously that's still huge, really. But it was that's the only way I can describe it is like the most intense pressure that I could ever experience. There was just no other option to push. But it did feel like the pushing was never going to end. Like I remember it just felt like the impossible. I was like, there's just no way. This is not happening. It's not going to happen. But actually, it obviously did. Thankfully, although I could feel the contractions and I could feel the pushing, I think the epidural did stop the pain of any tears. I only had minor tears that she did have to give me stitches, but it wasn't too bad. But I didn't feel the pain of tearing at all. I didn't feel like that pain of, you would imagine it's being stretched and it's creating lots of tears, but I didn't feel that. I just felt the immense pressure. And then when the head was out, I think that's the biggest relief. It's not uncomfortable at all because you know that there's more. But I was like, oh my goodness. And I thought the shoulders was going to be as bad, and it wasn't nearly as bad. So once the shoulders came out, it was just a huge relief. Yeah.
What was it like when he came out? How did you feel?
Oh, again, this is why I didn't take the morphine or whatever it was the second time because I was just so spaced out. So supposedly he was blue when he came out and wasn't breathing for a little while. I had no idea. I was completely clueless. And I think this is where the midwives did such an amazing job because I had no idea. So they didn't even let me feel that fear. They just were completely in control. And I think I asked if he was okay, and they were like, yeah, he's fine. And I'm really glad that they didn't let me feel that fear because they obviously know what they're doing. It wasn't a concern for them. And my husband said they literally were slapping him. He was like quite taken aback because it was just like slapping his cheeks a little bit. And so he was really taken aback as well. Ooh, I don't think you should be doing that. But I guess I'm not saying that's like
Shocking them
not.
awake.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that's normal, but obviously it's not normal to them. And then he did come round and he did breathe and they put him on me. And yeah, it was really emotional, but I did not feel that instantaneous burst of love that people talk about at all. It was just very overwhelming and just a lot. And I was just so relieved that it was over. But I definitely didn't feel that instantaneous burst of love. Like, it was, yeah, it was amazing. And, you know, it's like an experience that you never forget. But I just think I was so overwhelmed by it all. The adrenaline that is running through your body is just like nothing you've ever experienced. And then afterwards, I had like really bad like shakes. Like my whole body was just shaking uncontrollably. Like my jaw was literally like my teeth were chattering. And I said to like my husband, I was like, I don't know why. I was like, I feel like I'm really like anxious. I was like, but in my head, I'm not. But my body is reacting as if like I'm having a panic attack or something or an anxiety attack. But I was like, in my head, I was fine. But I think that was just probably a combination of all the adrenaline and everything running through my body and probably all the drugs that I'd opted to take.
Do you think the way you felt in terms of bonding with him, was that like something that because you were anticipating it, it was your like biggest fear, right? Was that you were maybe not going to experience motherhood as you'd wanted, or perhaps that it wouldn't work out. So when you didn't bond with him instantly, were you then, do you think that was like you freaking out, or like how was your experience of that?
I don't think I was freaking out as such. I think my husband was freaking out because he said he didn't seem that interested. But I don't think it was because I wasn't interested. I just had too many other emotions going on. Like I just had, I think the physical reaction of my body wasn't allowing me to think calmly or to even have those emotions. I just think there was too much going on. And I definitely think there is like sort of pressure, like because you do hear about that instantaneous bond, which I don't actually think a lot of people that I've spoken to didn't actually experience that. I don't think it's as common as it's made out to be. Like it's almost made out to be that pretty much everyone experiences it. And actually, I don't think that's the reality at all. So I was okay at the moment. Like I wasn't stressed thinking, oh my God, like I don't love him. I think I was very accepting of the fact that I was not in the right headspace to actually be thinking anything at all. And I gave birth at 9. Naively, I just wasn't prepared to stay in overnight because just so stupidly, but everyone says, oh, you most likely go into labor overnight. So in my head, I'd go into labor overnight, which I did. But in my head, I didn't even think about it. I just almost assumed I'd give birth to the baby in the overnight and then go home. It just didn't cross my mind that I'd be in overnight. And so when you have your baby, you're allowed to stay 4 hours in the delivery suite afterwards with your husband, which took us to 1 a.m. in the morning. And that was fine. And then at 1 a.m., they took me to the ward and they said that my husband had to leave. And I was just in an absolute emotional wreck by then. Like the epidural was only just starting to wear off. I just felt so out of my depth. I had no idea what I was doing. Obviously, I'd been up since 1 o'clock the previous night. I hadn't slept. I still had all the drugs in my system. I didn't feel capable of looking after the baby at all. And then they sent my husband home and I just was in uncontrollable floods of tears. And like, I remember thinking, this is the worst decision I've ever made. Like, I am not equipped and I am not ready for this. And because there wasn't anything wrong as such, there wasn't anything wrong with me physically. I just didn't feel like I could go to the midwife. You're in this ward of other people. It's 1 a.m. and your baby's in there crying. Everyone's keeping everyone up. And I just didn't, I felt like I couldn't go and ask for help and just say, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just felt like that wasn't a genuine reason to ask for help. So I just remember laying in bed, like absolutely like, sobbing, just so upset, just feeling so unsupported, like so upset that my husband had gone and just not knowing what to do at all. I just felt so lost.
It's so scary. And I feel so horrible for women who don't have their partners there because that hasn't been my experience. But I find it crazy that it differs from trust to trust, that some people are allowed to have their partners there and others aren't. Especially if it's your first baby. Like, I understand that there must be a lack of beds or they sit on chairs, don't they? They sleep on the chair next to you. But I find it crazy that, especially with first time mums, there's not more, there's not some kind of workaround.
No, it's
If
not. And you don't
if your
even know what
husband
you're
was allowed to,
doing.
yeah,
Sorry, go
like if he
on.
was allowed to lie, if he was allowed to, like, I bet he would have lied on the floor. If he could have laid on the floor all night, he would have.
Yeah. And he said when he left, he said like she's in a really bad way, like she's really upset. Can you check on her? I didn't know he said that until afterwards. And nobody came to check in on me. So I think with the NHS, my worst experience, like I had a really positive experience before. I had a really positive experience throughout the labour. Like, the midwife that I was in when I was in labour was absolutely amazing. Like she made me feel so looked after and everything. Yeah, I would never forget that. But the post care when you're in that ward, that was the worst experience for me. He'd even asked like for someone to come and check it on me and nobody did. And you're told not to have the baby sleep on you, but he was just screaming his head off. And you just have no idea what you're doing. Because again, NCT used to say, oh, does the nappy need changing? Are they hungry or this? And that's that. So you think, you're completely lost. I think, I don't know, he's just been born. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, it's tough. And it's funny, I've heard quite a few stories now of women saying the birth was fine. It was after the birth where
Yeah.
it all went wrong, either in the wards or the care when you get home, like not having
Yeah.
that support. And it's funny how I know there's that book, like Your Baby Week by Week, but there's not a lot else out there that people tell you. And even that, like, it's really hard referring to a book and go, the book's saying this, but he's doing this.
Yeah, because it's always very like standardized, isn't it? Like, oh, your baby should be doing this. I'm like, but he's not. There's no chapter for this behavior. But yeah, and so I can remember, and I obviously wanted my husband to go back and sleep as well, though, because I knew that he'd been up and he was going to be no use to me anyway if he wasn't well rested. So I really wanted him to go back to sleep and have a little bit of sleep. And he said to me, like, I promise I'll be back at 8 o'clock. So he could go get 5 or 6 hours sleep and come back. And he obviously fell asleep and he wasn't answering his phone. And he woke up, he missed calls from me because at 8 a.m. I was like, where are you? Because I had still only had 1 or 2 hours sleep. I was still like thankfully, like all the drugs they'd worn off and I was a bit calmer. And even only though I'd only had 1 or 2 hours sleep, I at least felt a bit better. Like I was a little bit more in a better headspace. And I think the next morning it was been to one. But at that point, I do remember looking at Leo in the crib and holding him. And I thought, no, I actually do really love you. I think I just needed the medication to wear off and the sort of overwhelm to calm down a little bit. And so the bond it still did happen quite naturally and it was quite fast. It just wasn't immediate. But by the next morning, I can just remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with you. Like, you are actually amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. Because, yeah, I didn't bond with my babies straight away. And I think it's so important that we're honest with that, even if it's 24 hours or it's 2 months. Mine took a lot longer. But I know from women I've spoken to and actually just friends and stuff who have said like when they felt really drugged up, either from epidurals or pethidine or like whatever they're given in hospital, like your mental state, you've just done the craziest thing you've ever done. So it's understandable to be
And
like
then you're
out of your
expected to
head.
take on the biggest challenge of your life as well afterwards. Like, it is pretty like we were laughing because my husband's had a vasectomy now and he was like, oh yeah, like I need the day off. And I was thinking, get stuffed. I was like, that is a minor operation compared to we
Yeah.
go through childbirth and we don't get a break. We literally go straight into motherhood and are expected to carry it all. I was like, you do not get a day off having a vasectomy.
We literally have, we're cut from vagina to bum or all through your stomach, major abdominal surgery,
And then
and
just
then got to
carry the
look
baby
after your
like,
baby and your toddler. Ugh,
yeah, exactly.
they will never know. They will never
No, they will not.
understand.
They will
Okay,
not.
so I don't want to rush you through here, but I reckon we've got time for baby number two. So you have two beautiful little boys. Do you want to talk us through your conception journey for your second? What's the age gap and how was that conception journey? Was he planned?
Yes, so he was planned. And again, I think my husband and I must just be like two very fertile people because first time, literally one time, we got pregnant, which again was a surprise. It's a 2 year, 2 month age gap, which yeah, I was happy with. I could have done sooner to be fair, but I wanted Leo. I really enjoyed Leo and I really wanted to enjoy him and let him have like, that sort of those baby years just being like the only child. But we were really lucky again. We decided, I think quite quickly after Leo, I knew that I wanted to, because I think my biggest fear was around like, whether we'd be able to bond and whether that relationship would form. And thankfully it did. And so then quite within a few weeks, I was like, I know that I don't want this to be my last experience. And I think that made it all a bit easier because it's just so amazing being in that bubble and knowing that you're not going to have that again. I think is quite a hard experience, because obviously now is my second. I know that all of his firsts are my last. So I'm really trying to soak it up. But yeah, we were really fortunate to conceive really quickly. And then the pregnancy, like I said, was pretty much smooth, just the slight differences with the pains. But obviously this time I had the knowledge, which I didn't have before. I had the knowledge and the experience. And I think that made it an even more positive experience because I just knew exactly what to expect.
And then what was your first signs of labour with him?
I was so chilled this time out. So first signs of labour were pretty similar to Leo. It was just contractions, but they were really irregular. Obviously, you've got a toddler this time. So I always meet my friend on a Friday, a friend that I met at NCT actually, and we'd always taken our little boys to the park or whatever. We spend the whole day together. And I was contracting all day and we were at the park and I was literally bent over like sideways. She was like, "Do you really think you should be here?" And I was like, "No, I'm fine." Just like in literally a random play park with my toddler. But I just knew that I didn't want to go in too early because I didn't want to be sent away. Like, I just thought for me, there would be nothing worse than being sent away if like, you're told you're not ready. So just a really chill day. My husband came back from work. It was a Friday. I had been texting him saying, I think I'm in labour, but don't worry. But he just went into full on panic mode. I think he knew how much I wanted the epidural. And his biggest fear was what happens if we leave it too late. And this is one thing I will say for you, like for anyone listen, advocate for yourself. Because my husband went into total panic mode again and was like, "No, we need to go. We need to leave. It's Friday, rush hour traffic. Nope, that's it. We need to go." And I was like, "I really don't think we need to go just yet. Like, it's actually fine. It's fine." And he was like, "No." He's like, "What happens if we get stuck in traffic? What happens if there's a crash?" So we went, and I was so livid that we were in the hospital. I said, "Let's go and have a coffee." I was like, because there is no way they are going to accept me now. Like, it was still really irregular contractions, and sometimes it would increase in intensity, but then it was going back down to like 20-minute wait and stuff. So I was like, there's no way they're going to accept us. And then when we sat and had a coffee, I think I was so fuming at him, like so angry. I was looking at him across the table like, "You're an idiot. I hate you." Like unnecessary hatred. And the contractions just stopped completely, which made me even more angry. So then we ended up going home because there's just no point even going into the ward. I know I'm going to get sent home. So we went home, I had a bath, got into bed. And then obviously, of course, the second you're relaxed and you're no longer stressed and you're in bed, the contractions came back. So we went back in at 11 o'clock. Thankfully, they see me again. And this time it was actually amazing. I was only 3 centimeters. I didn't even get to the 5 centimeters. And she was like, "If you want, the delivery suite's available now. So we can just take you in and you can have your epidural." Like, yes. I was like, I really want that. Oh, the best news. So I didn't even have to get to 5 centimeters this time. But I think naturally, I probably did because by the time we get into the delivery suite, it takes time. I think people think like it's quite quick, isn't it? But it's not. It takes time. Even though they said it's available, they have to sell it up and they have to, I don't know.
Anaesthetist.
Yeah, exactly. Send him across. And of course, there's always a blooming wait for him because there's only one on call. So it did get like, I remember it being really intense. I was on all fours. Oh my God. And within every contraction, I thought, if they don't bloody get this man over here now, I'm going to really lose my shit. I don't know if I could swear, sorry.
No, of course you can.
And then this time they really struggled to get in the vein in my arm. You obviously have to put the IV drip in your arm, don't know the needle. And they really struggled finding my veins. And my arm was just black and blue, bruised. And I felt so painful. And they just couldn't get it in. And then they had to send someone else. And I was just, so there was a bit of a scare at one point because the contractions were really quite intense. And I probably must have got up to, I don't know how many centimeters, but it was really intense. They were trying to get the IV drip in so they could give me the epidural. They couldn't get it in. My arm was black and bruised, like black and blue. It was so sore. So then they got someone else to come, tried the other arm. And at one point, 20 people just came rushed into the room because I think my blood pressure just completely crashed. Then I can remember just feeling so faint, but I'm not very good with needles, and so I had the contractions going on. I was being told to stay still. They had just been jabbing me nonstop trying to get this needle in. So I think that was making me feel faint anyway. And then my blood pressure just crashed. Everyone came running in. It was fine. It was a bit of a blur that moment, but then they did get the IV drip in, and as soon as they got the epidural in, I was like, thank the Lord. And I was really grateful that I was adamant that I wasn't going to get the injection that I got before because I don't even know if that was why I felt woozy, but in my head I thought that's why I felt so woozy. And it was just 10 times better. I had the epidural, the pain completely subsided, really relaxed, and I didn't have that same dizziness. I didn't feel so spaced out. Now, obviously, when you take the gas now, you feel a bit spaced out, but you can control that and you can choose when you need it. So it was just so much more positive. Just I felt a lot more in control.
That's amazing. And so, do you know at which point you think you got the epidural, or how dilated you would have been? Did they check you beforehand before they gave it to you, or did
They,
no?
no, they didn't. I don't think they did. So it can't. I can't have been. She must have checked and must have been fine. She didn't mention how many centimeters there was, but I must. If I went in at 11 o'clock, I had him at 5, 6 in the morning. So I probably was a bit more than I actually had been before, like over 5 centimeters, because it was more intense than the pain that I had before. So I would guess 6 or 7 centimeters, but fortunately, still plenty of time before we had to worry about the delivery. Because if they had told me you can't have the epidural, I think I would have just, I don't know, I think I would have, yeah, just collapsed in fear. Yeah.
Maybe the pethidine would have been looking good at that point.
Yeah, it probably would have been, to be fair.
So you were like, no to pethidine, but then how did this second epidural feel for you? Did it feel any different than the first time round?
No, I think, yeah, I suppose the pain relief was the same, but because mentally I was just there. I was 100% all there mentally. I knew I was very calm. I wasn't jittery at all. My heart wasn't racing. It was just complete, yeah, like pain relief. And then again, I could still feel the contractions, which is not what you expect, but I knew from before what to do. And I was more prepared with the gas nerve. I think I had really accepted I'm definitely having gas nerve and I'm definitely having an epidural. So I knew how to manage the contractions. Like, sounds silly, but they give you the gas nerve, but they don't tell you what to do. So I was just like, I didn't even know what I was doing the first time round, but I don't think I was doing it right. But obviously, I got into the swing of it eventually. So second time round, I knew exactly what to do, and I knew to look at the monitor because I was happy to be all hooked up so they could monitor the contractions. Because I quite liked seeing, because you can't really feel it at first, and then as it gets really intense, you can feel it. So I was like looking at the numbers on the screen, and so when I knew it was going up, I knew then when to take the gas in there. So it was just, yeah, like a lot more calmer and controlled.
And also, don't you reckon that when you do the gas and air, I feel the benefit of it is that it gives you the kind of pethidine vibe. So you feel a bit
Yes,
spaced out, but it runs out quickly.
yes. Yeah, it was like taking laughing gas balloons. Like when you
Yeah.
like, yeah, when I was a teenager, that's what it felt like. So I was having the time of my life, but it was nice because it was controlled. So I could use it for the contraction and then I could come off it and go back to a normal headspace.
You just have to really breathe, like
Yes,
slowly, don't you? You can't puff on it like a cigarette. You need to like, breathe it in. Because my
that's
friend was
what I was
like, you
doing
can,
first time.
yeah. You're like,
Yeah, you just keep it in your mouth and just breathe in and out, like absolutely fine. Yeah. They must have thought one idiot, but it didn't bother correcting me the first time.
it's funny. I feel like that is one thing that, like, why not in your NCT class or something? Do they not get the gas and air machine out and let you all have a play on it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's because I don't know about your entity, but mine were just so pushed towards hypnobirthing. They were like, you're not even on gas now, you're just doing it all naturally.
I didn't even do NCT because it wasn't even. I don't know if they didn't have it in my area at the time. I feel like they didn't have it in my area at the time, so I didn't do it. But yeah, friends of mine have said like, they'd never experienced it before. Like, why not? Is there at your midwife appointments or something a chance for them to say, like, here's the machine, practice
This
breathing
is what you
in,
do. Yeah.
or they don't like. I even found in my birth, and maybe it was different for you because you were having the epidural, but they wouldn't let me use the gas and air machine until a certain point.
I think that's like NHS standards. And I feel like this is again where it's different now. With my friends that have gone private, I've had very different experiences. Like
Get
they've
what you
just
want
been
when you go
like,
private.
yeah, 100%. You just get everything at the get go. So I'm just like, oh gosh, like that would have been
Pay for it
nice.
though.
Yeah,
You do have to pay
100%.
for it.
Yeah.
But sorry, you were saying that they were allowed gas and air whenever they wanted.
Yeah, so I used to live in the UAE, so some of my friends are still there, and obviously you don't have free healthcare there, so you have to go private. But obviously you're insured with your work, and that's why they got to have those experiences. But yeah, they were just given whatever they wanted from the get go. Like, just walk on in, get a menu, and you just pick. Yeah, I'll have this and this, and that's that. I can only imagine. My friend said it was like a hotel stay. Should do it again. 5-star hotel experience. I was like, that sounds very nice.
Just a far
The
cry
life of
from
the
what we've
luxury. Yeah,
experienced. We
life of
love
the
the NHS.
luxury. We
We do love
do.
the NHS. We are very grateful. I think it's just there are, I think we can all
Of
agree the
course,
maternity
yeah.
care system could do with a bit of a facelift, so to speak.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
back to the pushing stage. So you reached 10 centimeters. Talk us through what happened next.
So this time I was just a lot more calm. I remember saying to myself, don't make a big deal, just breathe in and out because like obviously I had done some of the hypnobirthing courses and stuff, and it was saying the best thing you can do to actually push is to breathe in and out. But because I had the epidural, I was in a fit state to be able to do that. I don't think I would have been able to do that if I didn't have the epidural. So rather than making a fuss and rather than doubting or thinking, saying that I couldn't do it, I just literally was just breathing through the thing, the pushing. But also, it sounds weird. You've done it once before, so you know that you can do it again. So there's a lot more ease, I think, with your mind and thinking okay, I know that I've felt this before. This is normal. This is what this stage means. So yeah, I was just really relaxed. He came out really, again, it was probably only 5 or 10 minutes. It was really quick. Wow. And then this time around, I think the connection was almost instantaneous because I knew what I was getting at the end of it. I know the outcome now. The excitement built up a lot more with my second, which I feel guilty for saying with my first. I love them the same, but I knew what I was getting. So it was a lot easier to enjoy the whole experience and also to know the outcome.
Did you know the gender of both your boys before you gave birth?
Yes, I did. I found out because, and this I think is a lot relatable to a lot of people going back to the childhood trauma stuff, but because of the mother-daughter relationship that I never had, I always really wanted a daughter because in my head, I missed out on having that. And it was like the only way to have it was by having a daughter, a mother-daughter relationship. So actually, it sounds awful, but I had to find out with my first because I needed to prepare for the disappointment with it if it was a boy. And that sounds awful because I obviously do not feel that way now that they're here. But I just imagined a girl my whole life. That's what I always wanted. I felt like that was going to heal part of me that I didn't have. So I found out because I knew that I would need time to adjust if it was a boy. And when I found out that I was having a boy first time around, I can remember actually crying. And then because my husband's already got 2 kids, we're not going to have 3, 4, 5 kids until we get a girl. I knew that it was either going to be
are they boys or girls? Or
a girl and a boy.
Okay, so he's experienced both.
Yeah, he's experienced both. And so, so I felt like that really initial disappointment. And then I came to terms with it the second time round. But by the next morning, I'd come to terms with it and I was fine. And I'm really glad that I found that out rather than, oh God, if I'd experienced that in the delivery room on top of all the other emotions that overwhelm, I think I would have just been a bit of a mess. But I accepted that I was having a boy. I was really happy about it. I just needed time to come to terms with it. And then second time round, I think you change your perception. Before, I wanted a daughter for selfish reasons, for my own experience. But then I had my son. I absolutely love him unconditionally. And then second time round, I wanted a boy, because I wanted him to have a brother. I felt like he was going to have a better sibling relationship if he had a brother. So second time round, weirdly, I'd actually done a complete 180 and was like, no, I'd rather have a boy for him. But I would have been really happy either way, of course.
It's the gender thing I find so interesting, right? Because I don't know if you listened to my birth story, but I really wanted girls as well. And I've got 2 boys, and my eldest, I found out and I was really disappointed. I guess I always hear women say this, and it's almost always that women want girls to begin with.
And men want boys, yeah. I think it's just a given, like you've grown up like that, like you've almost enjoyed being a little girl yourself or had like fantasies around little girls. So of course you want to replicate that. I think that's the experience for most people anyway.
And I almost always hear it's either a fractured relationship with the mother or a close relationship with the mother. So they're trying to replicate that. And then when I found out he was a boy, it took me a really long time. Like, it wasn't something that I got over in a week. It was like months for me. And when I like finally came to terms with it, because also like it's the build up in your head, isn't it? It's the
letting go of the expectation you've had your whole life. Like it was weird. Yeah.
You've picked a name. You're imagining them as teenagers. You're imagining them as like young women, and you're going to be on the phone or going for your wines together. I don't know, going shopping. It was. So that for me, it was like changing what my future was going to look like in my head. And then
100%.
with Kit, I didn't find out second time round because I honestly, once, as you've literally just said, once they are here, you're just like, oh my God, as if I cared.
Yeah.
And then when Kit was born, I imagined this euphoric moment of my husband announcing the gender. And he literally just turned around and said, it's a boy. I was like, oh, not in a disappointed kind of way, just that like, I just didn't even care as much as I thought I would in that moment either.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like almost like it was going to be a big announcement. I do think it's a really real feeling though. I find it really frustrating when people invalidate people's feelings around gender, because I don't think it necessarily comes from this like toxic, selfish place. I think it's often quite rooted in real like emotions and stuff. So yeah, I really don't like it when other people invalidate gender preference because I think it's just a real genuine raw emotion.
And it's filled with shame and guilt,
Mhm.
and you feel horrific for even thinking it or feeling it as well. It's not easy to, you don't go, oh, I'm happy I feel this way, are you? Like, no
Of
one
course.
wants to be disappointed,
Absolutely.
especially when it's their children. Like,
Yeah, exactly. You do feel guilty. And I feel so guilty that I even felt that about Leo. Like, and
mm.
then my husband always laughs, like, I'm going to tell him, but I'm like, but it's not even close to a representation of how I feel about him now. So, yeah.
I think, yeah, and thank you for saying that, because I feel like it's really important for anyone listening. I think people don't talk about it enough, and I don't want anyone to ever feel alone or shameful about it. And I think the more that we can talk about it, the less women can feel alone if they're dealing with that themselves, either like pre having a baby or post having their baby. But talk us through what it was like when he came out. What were your initial, obviously you said you were feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, so it was a lot more positive. So he came out in the morning, which was really good in a way because I didn't have to have the overnight stay. I could have. I think if I needed to, I would have. But I was like, you are getting me out of this hospital as soon as possible. Again, it wasn't busy, so they just let me stay in a delivery suite this time, which was amazing. So I didn't have to go onto the ward anyway. I just got to stay in my little delivery room. Said to my husband, go home, get a few hours sleep, and then come back at lunchtime. By literally, he left, and then half an hour later, they came to check his ears and do all the tests they do, and they were like, "You can go home if you want." I was like, "Yeah, I really want to go home." So I gave birth at 5, and I was home by 9 o'clock. I was like, "Get me out of here!" I think like I just
Incredible.
wanted to shower at home. I just wanted the home comforts, and you were a lot more relaxed second time round. I was
Mm.
so excited for Leo to meet him. And like I said, I don't feel like you have. I wasn't going to gain anything from staying in that ward. There was nothing beneficial for me staying in that ward. If I was worried about anything or I needed help, I could seek it, but I wasn't. So yeah, I left, and it was just such a positive experience second time round. And it is really frustrating though, like when you've got a toddler and you're expected to stay home at 100 days, like for all these midwife appointments and health visitors. I just think I'm not at home. Like, I've got a toddler. Like, I was in bloody soft play 3 days later. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the same experience. And they're like, "Oh, can we come over?" And I'm like, "No, I've got a 2 year old to entertain." But yeah, it was a lot more positive. I just think it's really useful for women to have that expectation around the post care and try and perhaps put support systems in place knowing that you perhaps won't get that kind of care from the NHS once the baby's here.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. I feel the same, and whether or not, it depends on how much money you have financially and how much support you have from your friends, your family. But like batch cooking, setting up those food trains, or like if you can hire someone to even come and like clean your house for the first few months postpartum, so you're not having to clean your own house, like all that kind of stuff that can just aid your healing.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my friend said, like, with my firstborn, like, I just wish there was we both said, like, wouldn't it be amazing if there was like this sort of hotel that you could go to? You don't even need your husband there, but you just need like midwives and other like experts in the industry where you can stay in this hotel, but you've got everyone that you need and other mums in the same position there, but in your own private room, of course, like where you were just away from the world. Because I just felt so out of my depth with my first. I just didn't feel like I had the support. Like I remember just thinking, just take me somewhere where I've got people that can help me. Like if only, I mean, I'm sure that does exist, but yeah, not in my
Probably for
reality
a
anyway.
cost.
Yeah, very, very
Everything
expensive
costs.
cost. But yeah, second time round, it was a lot more relaxed. So I think it does help to have those support systems in place, definitely.
I'm so grateful for having you on, because I feel like it's rare to get a woman who's had two, I would say, let's say high intervention in a way, because you had epidurals and all that kind of stuff. And like, I feel like the minute people hear pain relief or they've had an epidural, things like that, they automatically think, oh, I'm going to have an instrumental birth. I'm going to end up in an emergency C-section. And maybe it was luck. Maybe it was that your body just labors really well, and you would have been one of those women that was going to always progress well and dilate quickly and all that kind of stuff. So she birthed well. Or maybe it just is that there's more of these stories than we think. But I feel like it is so rare to hear a woman that has had two positive epidural experiences that didn't end up in a instrumental delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of fear around epidurals. And again, like I can't speak like because I'm not a healthcare professional and I haven't done the research, but I just really trusted the professionals. I thought they're not gonna like. I know that there's been dangers in the past, and I know with everything there are of course like risks that you take. But I was like, they're just not going to offer you something. In my head, anyway, they're not going to offer you something that could actually be like really high risk. So if you need it, and like, I've got quite a few friends that have had epidurals as well, and all of our birth stories are just generally quite chilled and relaxed. And my friend that went pain free, she's like traumatized. She says, I just remember staring at the clock on the wall and thinking, you absolute like twat, that you will never ever do this again. And like the way that she describes it just wasn't a positive experience. I just think if you can make it, if that's what you're tempted to do and you can make it a positive experience, it does just make the whole thing a lot easier and smoother, like in my head eyes anyway. But of course, each to their own.
100%. I feel like the thing about birth is that we can do it however which way we want to do it. And
Yeah.
it's up to us ultimately. And it will be interesting to see what happens in the world of a maternity care system. And imagine, like, I find it so interesting thinking, how will we be birthing in 10 years' time?
Yeah, it's true. It's so interesting. Is there going to be a robot in the room with you? What's going to happen?
I mean, we probably won't even be pregnating ourselves. We'll probably carry them around in these little egg boxes or something. Like, I've seen weird films like that where, like, then the woman's not pregnant. They, like, the baby is growing externally in the thing that they carry around.
Mental. I've been so lucky to be a woman, though, in the sense that, like, what an amazing experience. Like, I actually feel like my husband probably doesn't care to ever carry a baby, but I think you'll never get to experience that. You don't like, you'll never understand that. And like, it's just not like once in a lifetime, it's happened twice, but I just think, wow, I am just so grateful that I got to experience pregnancy and that I got to experience labor. Like, it's just something that yeah, it's just amazing.
I feel the same. I'd like to finish each episode with this one question, and that is if you have any words of advice or words of wisdom for a woman listening to this who perhaps is nervous about having a painful birth, or they were thinking, oh, I could never have a birth with an epidural, or just anything that you would impart on them, what would you say?
I think it would just be the words of my midwife. They just really stuck with me. At the end of the day, you don't get an award or a prize for doing it a certain way. So just really trust your body, go with what's right. The medicine's there if you need it. There's all these other options as well. And just go with what's right to you. There's just no certificate or prize. The prize is that you get a healthy, happy baby at the end of it. And that's it.
100%. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you so
that's
much.
she saved my life.
Thank God she said that.
Yeah, I know. Can't even imagine the world of pain I would have been in, struggling to prove a point to God knows who if I hadn't have listened to her.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been lovely. And we'll make sure we link to your podcast for anyone who wants to check it out as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Georgia.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.